Fourth Amendment in the Bill of Rights says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. I don't see how anyone who considers themselves a conservative could possibly reconcile their belief in the Constitution with the Transportation Security Administration's so-called advanced screening procedures, a choice between the radiation of a full nude backscanner X-ray or an advanced pat-down, which involves contact with the genitals. In a free society, it would seem that we would have a choice of airlines, which could impose their own security measures, and we would be free to choose the higher risk of a less intrusive search, or we could sacrifice our rights for the emotion of security. This is assuming that these new procedures actually make us safer in the first place. Despite all of the recent attention, there is still a small yet significant number of people who call themselves conservatives who either say they'd rather go through the measures imposed by an unconstitutional department of the federal government, but be safe, than have a Yahoo blow up the plane. Others say that they'd rather not do these measures, but that it's a necessary evil. So, if you're willing to give up your freedoms, how far do you go? Ben Franklin warned us against this. He said anyone who is willing to give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserves neither liberty nor safety. Honestly, it seems that if the TSA were to impose full body cavity searches and probing, that some people would still justify this because it's better than being the victim of a terrorist. Is it even possible to have a state of perfect security? And if so, at what cost? Well, what if this doesn't even make us safer? What if it doesn't even make us less likely to be the victim of a terrorist? Wherever there's a screening, necessarily there will be a lineup behind it. Sometimes this can reach into the hundreds or even thousands of people at the bigger airports. So, what's stopping a terrorist from gunning down people in line? What's there to prevent terrorists from crossing the Arizona border with AK-47s and going to the nearest mall and gunning down people on Black Friday? Likewise, is there any screening to stop terrorists from setting off suicide bombs in a high school football game or planting IEDs in a crowded beach during spring break? Hell, a terrorist could even hijack a Bolt bus and just drive it off a bridge. Surely these would cause mass casualties. Yet, we don't see it happening. How can this possibly be if supposedly TSA searches are what prevent terrorists from blowing up planes, yet these same measures aren't even implemented in other mass gatherings of people? Nearly 3,000 people died on September 11th. Yet over 4,200 soldiers have died in Iraq, and more than 1,300 have died in Afghanistan in the war on terror, which, by the way, we have spent over $1 trillion fighting, and there's no end in sight. But what is even more shocking than this is that in 2008, in 1 year, more than 14,000 people were murdered right here in the United States. That's more than all the American deaths on 9/11 and in Iraq and Afghanistan in 10 years combined. 14,000 people, friends, neighbors, relatives, brutally killed in cold blood, every bit as tragic and devastating as any other lives lost, right in our own backyard. Yet we don't see outrage. There's no Patriot Act to prevent this, no unconstitutional searches, no waterboarding, no trillions of dollars being spent. Is it possible for one small moment to think that maybe, just maybe, we're spending so much more energy and effort thinking about other distant lands halfway around the globe than what's happening in our own neighborhoods, cities, and towns, all the while voluntarily relinquishing our rights that supposedly we're fighting to protect?